Hey, what's going on, guys? So I often get asked about my building process, and so in today's video I want to show you guys exactly the steps that I go through in order to just snap build up a kit before review. I'm not going to go into any steps like preparing for painting and things like that because that's just a different subject. I just want to today focus on this kit, the HGC Zaku 1 simple kit. It's been out for a long time, so not going to be anything too fancy as far as the kit goes, but I just want to share with you guys my process, which over years and many hundreds of kits being built, I've developed into a process that is very efficient for me, because for me and what I do, it's helpful to build kits quickly and efficiently, but I just want to say that I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone, because I think building kits fast is not necessarily the point. It's just like what works for me, how I want to build, just because I need to keep up with kits in order to make reviews and things like that for you guys. For most of y'all out there, I would assume you're probably not in that much of a hurry to build your kits, so I would recommend you guys to just take your time, not necessarily worry so much about trying to build kits as fast as possible. But if you were ever curious about my process, that's what I'm going to show you guys today, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first step is going to be simply getting all the runners out of the bags. Okay, easy enough. And now a lot of people will use some kind of like fancy runner rack systems or some kind of like tray or shelving thing to kind of keep your runners in, or even will use some different methods like putting a piece of tape on the runner. Now this is an older kit. This kit came out in 2006 where the runner label on here is not punched out, so it is a little bit harder to see, so that method could be useful for you if you want. I don't normally do that, so that's not what I'm going to show you guys today, but it's just basically wrapping a piece of masking tape around here and then with a Sharpie writing a big A1 on there, so it's just much easier to see. That technique, not bad, but again, just not useful for me at all. I just don't really buy with that. So this is A1. I just put them in the box in order. A1, that's C, B1, A2. So there we go. A1, A2, B, C. Simple enough. Now they're in order. I don't need any sort of other shelf or any other peripheral. I've got them all right there. The stickers and polycaps I'll put to the side or just put at the bottom or whatever. Just set those over there. And then I use one of these like hobby separator box things. I don't know exactly what they're called. You can usually find them at different hobby stores, and they're usually used for like jewelry making or for like bead work, or I don't know, people use them for like fishing tackle or something like that. I guess they're used for all sorts of different things, but they're very useful. I've got 6 or 7 of these now that I use. This is the size that I use for HG kits. I've got a couple in a larger size that I'll use for 1/100 kits, because they'll usually, like a 1/100 scale kit, the parts wouldn't fit in here, but these are very nice for HG kits. Plus, once you have all the parts in here, they fit really nicely into the boxes as well, so I really love using these. So what I'll do with this is go through the manual and cut out the parts and place them into here. For like, usually here is I'll put all the parts for the waist section, the waist, the skirt. Here I'll put all the parts for the body. Here I'll put all the parts for the right leg, head, right arm, left arm, and then usually up here it's either like weapons and or backpack. If I need like 2 separate compartments, a lot of times this compartment doesn't end up getting used, or that's just for like extra little bits or something like that. Or if there's a lot of backpack, a lot of weapons to build, I'll separate them out. But normally that's how I separate everything. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go through an entire runner and then chuck that, or sometimes what I'll do is go through a section. It just kind of depends. A lot of more times is I'll just go through an entire runner all at once, but sometimes, like in this case, here is the section for the body, so I'll just go through and get all the parts I need here for the body and put them in there first, and then like the head I'll go through, but that involves flipping through the runners back and forth. And especially on an HG kit like this where it's pretty simple, all the parts are pretty recognizable, you almost kind of don't even need the manual to be able to tell which parts go to which. Like this is obviously feet parts, hand parts, that's parts for the forearm. So for a kit like this, it's probably much easier for me to just go through the full runner all at once. The only thing I need to pay attention to is for like parts like this for the forearm, that's 27, 28, 29, and 30. So they look the same, but the numbers are different, so I will check in the manual and make sure to cut them out on the correct arms just in case. It seems like you could just cut these 2 out for the right arm, cut these 2 out for the left arm, but just to be sure, I will usually reference the manual. But like I said, this is a pretty simple kit, so I can probably go through most of this without checking the manual too much. Even though I'm using very nice nippers, these are the 2.0 single blade nippers from USA Gundam Store, I always leave a little bit, so I never cut right up against the part ever. I know some of you may be thinking, Zach, if you're worried about being the most efficient, why don't you just cut right up against the part and then you could save yourself some time? Well, yes, I am worried about being efficient, but for me, that's just not the way to do it. So I'm worried about being efficient, but I'm also worried about doing things the correct way as far as I see them. And this goes back to what I was talking about in a previous video not too long about the modeler's perspective, and this just goes back to the modeling perspective on it. Even though I'm not painting the kit right now, I will want to paint the kit later, so I just want to make sure that I go through the proper steps of removing the nubs carefully, slowly, precisely, so that later, someday, whenever it does eventually get painted, I'll be able to get the best finish possible because I removed the nubs in a way that was not, too hasty. You may be thinking like, oh, what harm is it going to do to the part to just cut directly up against it? Well, even if you just cut directly up against the part, there's still going to be a little bit there that's going to be visible once you paint. And if anyone's ever painted, you can probably say that from experience. If you've tried doing that where you just cut directly up against the part and then try to paint over that without doing any other sanding or cutting away of the nub, I've never seen it done in a way that someone just cut out the parts directly from the runner just with the nippers flush up against the part and then painted, and then there was no visible nub mark. If any of you guys have ever done that and you can show me proof that there's no visible nub marks on it at all, then I'll be surprised, but as far as I'm concerned, I just don't think that that's possible. Now, speaking of modeling, this kit does have a number of different seam lines on it. I'm not going to be covering that in this video because, again, this is just to show you guys my process of snap building kits. This I normally do ahead of making a review, and I don't normally address seam lines ahead of reviews, obviously. Alright, so for a kit like this, it doesn't take too long, so like 15 minutes later, I got all the parts all cut out and all separated. So once again, waist parts, body parts, and then in this case, I cut a backpack at the same time because the backpack's like 3 pieces. Right leg, left leg, head, right arm, left arm, and all the weapons and accessories, which there is quite a lot, but again, it's pretty simple. The polycaps, I usually don't cut out at the same time. I'll usually just, when I'm going through after I've got the nubs removed, I'm actually putting the thing together, is when I'll just pop out the polycap. So I just keep this off here to the side still. And most of the time I'll build in order of the manual, sometimes not, but in this case, let's just start off with the torso / backpack section. So I'll just take out all the parts here for this section. I usually put them over to one side and then just go through these, cut off my nubs, then put them over to the other side. So I just move them one by one, take apart, remove the nubs, set over to the other side, and then once they're all done, then we'll put it together. So most of the time when I'm building kits just for reviews, I don't really do a lot of sanding. It's just removing with a knife. Now, this is also not an efficient way to completely clean up the nubs before painting. I will have to go back and sand before painting, but at least for the purposes of preparing the kit for the review, a knife is usually good enough to remove the nubs, at least to the naked eye. It's just that before painting, I will have to go and actually sand some more because even with a knife like this, it's not enough to be completely invisible once you get some paint on there. And I see a lot of people often worrying about like the white mark, which is a stress mark in the plastic left over after removing nubs, especially on darker color plastic like this dark blue. And so let's just take a look at that. So you'll notice one thing that I do when cutting off the nubs with a knife is I'll cut a little bit from one side, turn the part around, cut a little bit from the other side, turn the part around, cut a little bit from the other side. And usually it takes 2 or 3 times for that should be enough. And then with your thumbnail, scratch that part a little bit, and usually that should be enough to basically remove much of any of the white part left over. Now you see there's still a little bit left there and it's not completely perfect, but again, that's just going to be perfect enough for my purposes for now. When it comes to painting, I'll go ahead and sand that down some more. Another thing that you can do when it comes to this little white marks being left over in parts like this is if you have some Tamiya thin cement, is you can just get a super tiny bit of glue on the brushes that has like a little applicator stick with a little brush on there. Get as much glue off of there as possible and just brush a little bit of that thin cement on there. That will also get rid of that. Alternatively, if you have a similar color Gundam marker, if you just rub your Gundam marker on there, as long as it's like a similar like blue, dark bluish kind of color, then that the ink will fill into like basically where that plastic is stressed, and that will also kind of help get rid of that sometimes. Another part that people also have trouble with is often the thruster bells like this, where it's a round surface, and especially in this case it's quite small as well, so you have to be a little bit careful with that. And this is one that I probably would go ahead and hit with a sanding sponge a little bit, but At least for now, it's just about carefully taking your time. So slicing a little bit, turning the part, slicing a little bit, turning the part, slicing a little bit, turning the part. Another way to kind of check your work is just kind of dragging the blade like that, softly on there. You can see, you can feel kind of where it's getting hung up. So I know there's still a little bit of nub there that I can probably cut away. We're gonna have to get in super close to see this, but you can see where the nub is removed, there's still like a little bit of like kind of a lip created from where the nub was there, where it's just like a little bit kind of part that doesn't match with the rest. And this as well, you can just hit this a little bit with the knife, just kind of scratch that away a little bit, and it's gone. So there you go. Once I've got the parts all cleaned up, I'll bring the instructions back in over here and just put it together according to the instructions. So we got a couple of A poly caps that'll go onto here. And then once this section is all done, there we go. Didn't take too much time at all. And it's basically just rinse and repeat. Repeat that same process for each of the different sections. So there's the torso done. Next we'll do the waist section, and then one leg, the head, the arm, the weapons. And like I said, sometimes I'll follow the order of the manual, sometimes not, just kind of depends on what I'm feeling. I normally like to get my kits standing as soon as possible, so I would build like the waist and the leg sections first and then build the other sections later on. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this all built up, and then we'll see how it looks. Alright, here we go, just about an hour and a half later. Some of you may say, oh, an hour and a half, that seems like kind of a long time for such a simple HG. Could you put that together in like 20 minutes? Again, this is putting it together quickly while also putting it together, you know, with some care at least involved with that. Now, again, it's not ready for paint at this point, but just want to show you guys the normal process that I go through for building kits for reviews here, and this is how I would normally do it. So, generally for an HG kit, normally it would take around 2 to 3 hours to put the kit together. This one was a little bit quicker just because it's so simple and I've built the kit a couple times before. A master grade would generally take something a little bit more like 4 to 6 hours to put together. Again, just depending on, there's a wide range of complexity when it comes to master grade kits. So it just kind of depends on the number of parts that you're dealing with. Obviously a kit that has a lot more parts is going to take a little bit more time to put together. It's just a lot more nub removal to do and everything. But that's basically it for just my basic construction process for putting kits together. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys or interesting for you guys who were just wondering about, you know, my process in detail. There it is for y'all. Of course, if you have any other further questions, you can feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, guys, big thank you to USA Gundam Store for making it all possible for me to be able to make videos like this, and of course all my reviews and everything. If you guys want to check out some different kits and everything there at USA Gundam Store, the link will be down in the video description below. There's also my coupon code down there for you guys to use as well. That will save you 10% off everything on the site. So thank you USA Gundam Store for making it possible. Thank you guys for watching the video, checking it out, liking, commenting, subscribing is all greatly appreciated as well if you're so inclined. But until next time, guys, I hope you're all having a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.